Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chair of the AAPC Foundation, Rose Kapolczynski. And fade.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a fabulous time, just like I am at this conference. I have a few housekeeping matters for you. First, you have two really important QR codes on your table. One from Trade Desk, our sponsor for this luncheon and a major sponsor of the conference. Let's give them a little hand. Second, and slightly closer to my heart, AAPC Foundation. I want to thank everybody who's already contributed through the golf tournament or the silent auction. We have a handful of really great prizes for the silent auction. You can still bid until tomorrow at lunch. It's right outside this room. And on your table, you can make a direct donation today to the AAPC Foundation to support our work to monitor regulatory threats to the industry, support the next generation of consultants through internships and other great work. Before we hear about crafting the right media mix, I want to talk about a terrific mix for AAPC. Our president and vice president for the last 2 years, Becky Donatelli and Larry Wynn. First, I hope you'll join me in celebrating the incredible accomplishments of Becky Donatelli, who's wrapping up her 2-year term. If we were on the Great British Baking Show, this week's conference would be Becky's showstopper. So please join me in celebrating. Please stand, Becky. And Larry, in addition to being a terrific consultant, Larry has already contributed so much through his service to the board. And I want to mark a really important milestone for AAPC today. I'm proud that Larry Wynn will make history as the first person of color and first LGBTQ consultant to ever serve as president of the organization. Of course, some of Larry's fans wanted to weigh in on this moment too. Here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Quote, Mazel tov. We've come a long way since the days when you and Brent walked me through Bloggers Row at the 2008 Democratic Convention. As a pioneer and innovator in digital campaigning, you helped my campaign, as well as many others around the country, take full advantage of the power of the internet, and you helped us win. And former Senator Pat Leahy wrote, quote, I was among your first clients and was proud to watch you and Brent build Trilogy into a thriving business that supported countless Democratic candidates and causes. Your personal history of being born in a refugee camp in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, after your family fled Vietnam is deeply moving. Yours is a success story that reflects the best of the American dream, and you will be an important role model for future political leaders. Judy Chu, chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, weighed in. Being the first is momentous, and I encourage you to take this position to make sure that while you are the first, you won't be the last. Even former presidential candidate Wes Clark, remember him, marked this moment because Larry was the head of the Draft Clark movement. Quote, I'm not surprised that you're making history with the AAPC as the first Asian American and first openly LGBTQ consultant to serve as president, because this is just the latest in a long line of firsts you've achieved throughout your life. At a time when our democracy is under stress and strain like never before, we need your leadership. And finally, a local Palm Springs resident and my favorite former senator, Barbara Boxer, weighed in, quote, "As someone who's broken barriers, I can tell you representation matters. Your election as the first person of color and the first LGBTQ president will inspire and open doors for young consultants around the country." Of course, being politicians, they wrote much, much more about Larry in these letters. Thank you for everything you've done, Larry, and can't wait to see what you do as president. Congratulations.
I was not prepared for that. Thank you very much. Not really an emotional person, at least publicly, unless I'm watching like soap operas or something. But thank you. Why don't we gotta roll. Let's get our panelists up here and see how I get myself together. Great, let's get started. Crafting the right media mix, which any of us who've been on campaigns, it's hard. So we're gonna try to do our best in the limited amount of time we have here. I want to first start by introducing our amazing panel, and I'm gonna do it quickly, so I apologize how fast I'm gonna start speaking. But to my left, starting with Paul Wynn. Paul Wynn is spelled W-I-N-N. I'm the proper Wynn at H-U-Y-N-H, but that's a whole nother conversation. So obvious. Paul Wynn is a media strategist who has worked on hundreds of campaigns in 49 states. He's overseen more than $1 billion in media spending. In the off years, he can be found chasing his 2 sons around DC or on a basketball court, proving his brother received all the athletic ability in the family. Next to him is Casey Bissett. I got that?
You did.
Okay, good. Casey Bissett is a partner and media strategist at Sage Media Planning and Placement. Casey has worked on everything from state legislative caucuses to presidential super PACs. Originally from New Hampshire, Casey was raised to be 2 things: a diehard Boston sports fan and a true blue Democrat. I don't know a Boston sports fan who isn't a diehard, but having met a number of them, because y'all are crazy. Next to Casey is Kevin Fisher. He's GM of business development at the Trade Desk. Kevin leads a team responsible for revenue generation and strategic partnerships in political. Kevin brings a keen understanding of how technology and premium publisher inventory maximizes results for media buyers. Then we have Chris Galugian. Chris has worked in politics for over 20 years, for the last 7 at Cross Screen Media, before that at Targeted Victory for 6 years, and for a decade prior as a campaign operative. And finally, we have Kelly Vingelis. Kelly is a senior VP at Berlin Rosen, managing a team of advertising strategists working across verticals from advocacy to politics to product marketing. Delivers best-in-class advertising through customized media planning and data-driven acquisition, awareness, and persuasion strategies. So welcome our awesome panelists. Before we get started, I want to invite Kyle Roberts up here, because I think he's going to help set the stage with some really great data from Ad Impact. So take it away, Kyle.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take a second, though, and congratulate you again, Larry. That was a really heartfelt congratulations that we just witnessed, and I'm proud to know you for 10 years and work under you, and I would say that it was absolutely necessary what we just saw a few moments ago, and I just want to congratulate you again.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully I can find my presentation. Okay, I have it. So we're going to talk about media mix just for a moment. And why are we talking about media mix, and why am I doing it based upon spend? So I thought maybe just to set the table, we should think about how has media mix changed from 2018, 2020, and currently in 2022. It's 2023 now, but the previous cycle. How has it evolved over time, just to set the stage for this panel? And then I'll just share one slide at the end based upon some ACR data and look at the difference between linear consumption and nonlinear consumption, or CTV consumption. So, we're looking at 2018 right now. It was a $4 billion environment. All political ad spend, just 5 years ago, approximately $4 billion. Broadcast garnered 72% of the spend, so it's safe to say that among media mix, broadcast was 72% of the overall share. Cable, 22%. The point of this slide is to show that only 5 years ago, you basically had about 94% of the overall spend on linear. Linear meaning the targeting is one-to-many, not one-to-one. Next, we roll into 2020. Previously, we were a $4 billion environment in 18, we're now a $9 billion environment. So you had 125% growth in overall ad spend in politics. Broadcast, though, drops. It was 72, now it's 58. Its overall dollars increase, but the share of dollars drops dramatically. Digital, which wasn't even on the previous slide, digital is defined as everything we can scrape from the transparency reports from Facebook and Google, comprises 20% of the overall spend. Cable holds steady at about 18%. But now you have overall linear share dropping and you have non-linear taking additional share. Okay, 2022, just our past cycle. We stay at the roughly $9 billion number. It drops a little bit, but not that much. Okay, broadcast share, 58 now to 53. Cable goes from 18 to 19. CTV was not on the previous slide. It's now 12% overall share. It clocks in at $1 billion. And then digital drops from 19 to 11. We saw roughly $700 million come out of Facebook and Google in the 2022 cycle when you compared it to 2020. I'm sorry I'm going so fast, but I'm only supposed to have 2 minutes. Okay, so that is a summary of what I just showed you, and that is the overall media mix share that we saw in politics in 2022, with CTV being approximately 12% and linear being approximately 58% combined, which linear is defined as broadcast and cable. Lastly, I'm going to show you the overall share of active users by device. So what the heck does this mean? This is 20 million panels. This is the ACR data we've been talking about. If you look at what is the overall share, I took 30 months, so I'm just looking at percent. I took 30 months of data and trended it out. And if you look at, well, what is the percentage of people getting their impressions, their viewing impressions? This is not ad supported now. This is just pure viewing impressions. What's the percent over time watching linear versus CTV? And you can see that CTV now comprises almost 80% of impressions. And you can see also the green line shows broadcast decreasing. Okay, I just wanted you to see that for a second. I'm sorry I can't go back because I can't find it on the clicker. But okay, so what are my overall points here? So broadcast remains approximately 50% of the budgets, although its share of dollars did decrease about $500 million between 20 and 22. Cable saw growth from 18 to 20. It doubled, and it actually held in 2022. We saw for the digital side, Facebook and Google actually dropped between 20 and 22, and then CTV enters the stage at approximately $1 billion and 12% overall share. So you can take what you want with all that. I'm going to turn it over to this panel, and Larry's going to be in charge of all the random stuff I just gave you.
Thanks,
you,
Kyle. And to quote Auntie Maxine, reclaiming my time. So I think let's just react to the data, right? I mean, there's some big changes. Just throw it over to the end. Kelly, you looked at that media mix, especially for 2022, growth, relatively big growth in connected TV, and then some pulling away from broadcast. But what's your reaction to that overall media mix?
My initial reaction was, and I know that this is only looking at the transparency centers with Facebook and Google, which that's not even half of the internet. As a digital buyer, we are trying to move away from Meta. We are seeing less political spending on Google simply because of their restrictions, but there's at least 10 other platforms, other places that we can be buying digital inventory. And so I think we just have to take all of this data with a grain of salt that digital is completely unregulated for the most part, and it's hard to track. And so we have to be thinking of it as more than just Facebook and Google.
So do you think those numbers undercount the digital portion of the buy?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
digital folks should complain less about not getting.
No, that is
I'm
not
just
my
curious
point.
where we're going here. Chris, well, no, I'm gonna throw it to a TV person because I don't want to. I'm not gonna show my bias yet. Paul, what's your reaction to that media mix? Feel right? Does that feel right? Was it appropriate to have that type of media mix, especially in 2022? Did you feel like the results based on that media mix were appropriate, or how do you react to it?
I think there's obviously a lot of things to think about there, but the biggest thing is when you look at that percentage, about 25% of it was digital. Now, there's a lot of that money is going to acquisition, and certainly there is a certain amount that's undercounted. But when you think about the length of time that political campaigns are active, it's typically about 6 to 8 weeks. The reason why you're seeing such a large percentage to broadcast, which I think is the underpinning of your question, Larry, is just because of the reach that you're getting there. Now, the big thing we have to start battling against is as that reach decreases and as we hit a lower ceiling amongst the reach on the broadcast audience, how are we shifting the budgets to make sure that we gain that incremental reach and to reach people that aren't consuming as much traditional media?
Chris, you have thoughts about reach and broadcast and digital?
Yeah, I think the numbers make a lot of sense. I think you're absolutely right. It undercounts the amount of video going to digital, but based on the transparency reports, just work with the numbers we can see. You had a 96% year-over-year growth of time spent on streaming, where there's only a 6% year-over-year growth in terms of overall video viewership. That just means more eyeballs are going to streaming, not necessarily. We're seeing an acceleration of cord cutting. That continues to be the case. But you look at, let's just take let's take Warnock in Georgia, right? In the month of October, they bought 3,800 spots in the Atlanta DMA alone. Broadcast penetration against that swing audience that they were targeting is 75.3%. With all the money that they had and all those spots, they still only reached 63% of that audience. Money has to start shifting. I think those numbers make a lot of sense.
Kevin, you have a perspective on brands. Would these numbers make sense in the brand context? Like, how are brands spending money? Are we special in politics? I'm not saying good or bad. Just special.
We are special in politics. Brands are spending more aggressively in CTV than we're seeing here on those slides. I think the one thing that's interesting is the consumption habits that Kyle talked about, where you saw the increase of CTV and the decrease on the linear side. Brands are matching that more aggressively, in the non-political world in terms of distribution of spend.
Brands tend to but they prioritize a certain audience a lot of times, right? When do they skew younger in terms of their desired reach and who they're trying to reach, or is it broad? It depends on the brand, I'm sure.
It totally depends. They're trying to reach everybody, and so I think one of the interesting things that brands are doing now is they're really focusing on the effectiveness of the media that they're running. I think that points to some of that data as we look on the digital side too. A lot of the Meta and the Google dollars that are being tracked, one, they're maybe DR focused and lead gen and fundraising. And then two, it's about the effectiveness of it. There's a very big difference between premium publisher content and the experience as a viewer watching that, and autoplay, sound off on my phone or on my computer. And so brands are very much looking at the effectiveness of the media they're running, and then also from a measurement perspective, how can they normalize between linear and CTV with household reach?
So could I get the media consumption slide up? Because I want to toss this to Casey, because there's always more nuance, right? We were looking at the overall numbers, but that's not.
I add one thing
Yeah,
first,
go ahead,
Larry?
Paul.
So the one thing I would say is I think it's a really tough comparison to compare to brands, just because the length of time that political advertisers are in the market is so short compared to what you see brand advertisers doing. And when you think about some of those numbers, most of those advertisers have very little name ID or brand awareness, right? So they're virtually starting from scratch. So that's the big driver that you see why there's a different media mix for politics as opposed to maybe a lot of other advertising categories.
I guess to push back, because this is where I'm going to go. We can look at those. Casey, you go first, and then I'm going to push back. You go, talk about what's up there.
Okay. Well, I totally agree, and I do think we are different in political, and there's a good reason for it. Political is a one-day sale, right? There's no next quarter earnings to make up for. You're typically on the air at most, if you're lucky, 2 or 3 months, maybe. You have to push a large amount of people out in a short amount of time. And secondly, we are usually targeting a different demographic. A lot of brands are trying to get adults 25 to 49 with disposable income, and I'm looking at who's showing up in a Democratic primary. That's a lot of times adults 50 plus, and they are still watching broadcasting cable.
Right, but let's show the stats. So the media consumption slide, because I think it's important to understand those stats based on the audience, right?
Yeah.
Just even as simple as age, there are big differences.
Huge differences. And look, the answer to everything in political is it depends. There's no hard and fast rule. If I'm trying to get millennials to get out the vote in a Seattle mayoral race, I'm going to be doing more CTV. But if I have a southeastern Ohio congressional district and we're going after adults 65 plus, you're going to see a heavier mix on broadcasting cable.
There's a race I was on, and we were looking at data, and it was one of those instances where you're exactly that. It was a situation where older voters and white were the swing voters, and it was statewide.
Right.
So in that case, do you agree, like, hey, a heavy broadcast, especially like this was negative, it's late, it's just trying to hammer it, heavy broadcast was the decision. Does that make sense? I'll throw it to the panel from that.
I'll keep talking. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, but I think it's also every media plan. I mean, obviously there's budget constraints that we all have to deal with, but every plan should have layers. And I don't think you ever want to put all your money on broadcast or all your money on digital. It should be a media mix, which is what we're here to talk about.
How would you approach it, say, differently if it were the same exact audience, but you were in, say, LA, in the LA market, and it's a congressional race? Like, how would you advise a client who's like, I just want to see my face on TV. That feels great when I'm on the evening news. That makes me feel good. That's what we want to do. What's your reaction to that as a media buyer? And Paul, you can react to this too, because we've never run into that situation, right? So. Casey, keep going.
We have a saying at Sage, do you want to be famous or do you want to be elected? So you can buy the fanciest, most prime spot and be seen everywhere. If that's not where your target voters are, it doesn't matter. So I do think even in a market like Los Angeles or New York, I'm still usually buying broadcast. But it is a much smaller component of the buy. We're usually looking at specific targeted, looking at ratings for whoever our target demo is and kind of cherry picking a handful of shows that group is watching. And then you're probably going to have a heavier cable, CTV, OTT, digital presence.
Yeah, I want to talk about, we've been talking about audience, and I guess the question I have is, should we be doing more research on audience up front, what they're actually doing? If we know our targets, a lot of times we go from targets, go buy, right? But we don't actually know, when you see very diverse media consumption habits, even just age, we haven't even talked about sort of race and in language versus, English and the various complexities there. Have you experienced sort of audience research before, consumption habit research before, and then and do you believe we need to do more of that to have the right media mix? I'll throw it down to the end.
I mean, absolutely. That's like one of our pitch phrases that we use is we don't build media plans, we build audience outreach plans, and everything comes from an audience perspective. Especially on the Democratic side, we're often looking to reach the quote unquote hard to reach communities. And so how are we finding Latinx voters who maybe the only traditional television station they're watching is Univision? And, great, let's buy out as much of Univision as we can, but there's the rest of the internet to take into account. And so we have to do that research into their media consumption habits, and a lot of that research exists and is starting to come, but a lot of it is still missing. And so I think as a party and as an industry, we need to be investing in more research into those more diverse / hard to reach audiences, and then finding, making plans that speak to that rather than to what Casey said about what the candidate or what the funder wants to see.
Well, and I'd also say, like, the consumption of the media mix is super important, but as streaming takes off and CTV is extremely fragmented, the actual, like, devil in the details and the nuance of how you access that inventory is almost just as important as keeping track of how the consumers are shifting.
Can you explain that more for our audience so they understand what you mean by that?
Yeah, so essentially in CTV, there's 3 ways to buy inventory on a network. You go to the network like an NBC directly, the content owner, you buy a portion of inventory there. Then there's devices like a Samsung Smart TV or a Roku device. You can buy swaths of inventory on NBC there. And then there's distribution partners like a Hulu. All in one ad pod, you could serve one household 3 times if you buy across all of those. And I'm sure everybody here buys NBC, Roku, and Hulu, and you should. There's 2 ways to buy. You can go direct IO, and you're sending an IO over, or you can buy it programmatically through companies like the Trade Desk. And when you buy programmatically, you can actually control frequency across the content owner, the distribution partner, and the device owner. When you're controlling frequency, he or she in control of frequency controls reach. Reach is the name of the game, especially in persuasion. So starting there is and kind of nailing how you're actually accessing inventory on a tactical level is critical to maximizing opportunity.
Yeah, and Chris, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the supply path is really important. I think there are 2 other elements that are not currently being talked about here that go into optimizing that media mix. One is when we're looking at the consumption habits, taking into account the fact that even if you're trying to reach swing voters in a congressional or in a statewide, the way the people, the individuals in that audience consume media is going to vary market to market and geo to geo. I think the other thing there
Can you put the reach slide up? Because I think this will lead right into some of this, your slide.
Oh, great. The other aspect of this is it's not enough to say we can, max penetration on broadcast is X and max penetration on digital is Y. You need to break that down further. The way that we do it is kind of looking at heavy, light, and none. And what I mean by that is Samba put out a report probably about a month ago now, but it was the top 50% of broadcast viewers were seeing 103 ads per day, and the bottom 50% were seeing 7 ads per day. So just because you can potentially reach somebody on broadcast doesn't mean that's where the first dollar should go. The second part of that we haven't talked about yet is actual costs and taking costs into account. Like identifying and defining what a viewable view is, eliminating targeting waste, being able to therefore create either a cost per point on digital CTV just like you do linear, or conversely, an effective CPM for digital CTV and linear as well. It's all about creating a waterfall from not just the consumption standpoint and what makes the most sense to get in front of that audience, but where those dollars go, from most efficient to least. Do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what I found interesting about some of this data is reach is everything for us, right? It's like you have an audience, you're trying to get to as many of them as possible wherever they are, and crafting the right media mix is exactly that. It's ultimately maximizing reach and making sure that you're not over-saturating one group while sort of underserving one group. Even if you have 88% reach, you could actually have the wrong mix because you've underserved someone who's heavy CTV and no broadcast and vice versa, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. This is a campaign from last fall. This is a very large state, very large campaign, 6 million households in the target audience. I think there were 10 plus markets that this was an analysis of. There are 2 things here. One, like Larry said, the total reach against this audience was 88%. But if you actually look at the breakdown between broadcast, cable, CTV, and then mobile, desktop, digital, no single medium reached more than 63% of the audience. So the only way it got to 88% was by having a robust media mix. Second piece of that, if we go to the bottom, is the exclusive reach. And you can see on the linear side, 20% of the audience saw it only on linear, 25% of the audience only saw it on digital and CTV, and 44% saw it on the permutation of those three mediums. That 44% is the hardest portion of the audience to reach. That would be who we'd say like the bottom 50%, they're only seeing 7 ads on broadcast are, but it's also the biggest opportunity for everybody in this room, right? It's the reason that we're having a conversation about what the media mix should be, because that portion of the audience is the margin.
I have a question. I want to talk about the thought behind common measurement, right? Is that as big of a problem in sort of helping us define media mix? We're talking about GRPs over here, we're talking about impressions over here, and you know, we have problems talking about it amongst ourselves, let alone trying to convince a candidate who's way older than us, who barely understands what CTV is sometimes, or they're using a CTV and don't even know it, which is more likely what's happening. How do we move as an industry to help solve that problem? Is there something we need to be doing to get there? Because I mean, if we were to have metric and standard measurement all across America, it would be a shit show. So, we kind of do. But your reaction to that in our industry and that the different measurements that we're providing to our clients and reading?
Yeah, I think finding a standard unit is the holy grail. I think we would all love to have that. I don't think we've found it yet. I do agree, frequency and reach are probably the two most important measurements, but you know, a CPM is so subjective to what the universe size is, whereas a cost per point, we can measure that. We all know what a point represents. So
do we? I'm asking. It's evolved, right? What it meant 20 years ago is different than what it means now. I think.
But I think that's
in terms of like what people think it means. Let me take it out. It means what it's always meant, but what our clients think it means is different than what it actually is doing these days, right? They think it's reaching everyone in a way that it's reaching the audience that's on linear at that point, right?
Well, right, and you don't want to the reason we're all up here advocating for layers is because you don't want to just over-communicate to the same one audience. So 1,000 points a week used to be the standard on broadcast. I almost would never do that these days. I'm probably doing 500 points on broadcast and a frequency of 5 on OTT and a heavy spot load on cable, because people don't make the distinction. We all in this room know the difference, but if I talk to my parents and I say, hey, what'd you guys do last night? They say, we watched TV. They don't say we watch CTV or we watch broadcast. Viewers aren't making the distinction, and neither am I. And frankly, I don't care if you're watching TV, and I don't care how you're watching it. If you're watching Vanderpump Rules, hashtag Team Ariana, obviously.
Mess.
If you're watching Vanderpump
Mess.
Rules, I don't care if you're watching it on Peacock or on your cable subscription, you're watching the same thing.
Paul, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the generalization is really unfair, Larry, because we're getting pushed by our clients. We know, our clients are really well aware that there is a diminishing reach to traditional television. And how are we going to continue to drive messages for them? We're being really pushed to make sure that these messages are getting delivered. And I think far too often we get caught up in a lot of these media stats. The only thing our clients care about is the head-to-head and the seen, read, and heard in polls. And so far too often we're losing we're saying, oh, politics is so much gut, right? You're just doing it because that's what everybody else does. But we're actually getting a ton of feedback from the marketplace on a daily basis in a lot of races through the survey data. And right, there's issues there. There's other people that will talk more about that. But it's still a good feedback loop compared to what a lot of other categories are getting.
I don't get any time.
Drop the mic.
I get time. I get another question.
One more question.
Thank you. We got to look forward, 2024, right? We talked about a mess of Vanderpump Rules. I think the election is going to be a mess in a lot of ways because it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of activity, a lot of turnout. What would you say you're looking forward to in 2024 in terms of how you're going to approach crafting the right media mix, or what you're going to be telling your clients, like your number one thing that you want them to think about as you develop that media mix strategy? I'll just go down the line.
I mean, I think it's being open to what's going on in the marketplace as well, and understanding that we're not operating in a vacuum. How I'm approaching it is much different than the Democrats, because I know we're going to be outspent. So I'm going to have to work with whoever else is in the marketplace with me, and I may not be able to do everything I want. I may just have to take whatever budget I have and help fill holes.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see the fragmentation that we've been seeing. I mean, there's more money being spent than ever before, and there's more fragmentation than ever before. So I think we're gonna have to keep just following our viewers from screen to screen. I also think while everyone's focused on the presidential, it's important to look at what's going on in the states as well. And looking at a state where there's maybe a choice ballot measure, you're gonna have a much different media mix than some of the states that are just totally getting hammered with presidential spending.
I would say become friends, any media buyer, become friends with a brand marketer who's constantly in market buying. The world is changing constantly, and they're going to have a pulse on subscriber churn, going from service to service, distribution rights, sales rights from these network owners and distribution partners, and that really impacts how you can buy and maximize reach in a streaming world.
Aspirationally hopeful that agencies become less siloed between television and digital, so there's more holistic planning and placement happening. Realistically, I am really excited about measurement of reach and frequency coming into place this cycle, and then really the ability to not just plan based on the consumption habits, activate, and then take that measurement data and iterate for the next round. I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Close us out, Kelly.
The thing I'm looking forward to the most, and the thing I'm going to try and push my clients to do, is more CTV. I think we're seeing, obviously, it's taking off, and there's multiple ways to buy it, and it's measurable, and we can actually reach different audiences, not just your average cable or broadcast viewer, not just an age and gender or geography. We can actually look at really specific identities, and so just hoping clients really feel like they're ready to move.
Yeah, and one thing I add on CTV, it's not simple. It's not as simple as you think it is. It's targetable. I think Kevin's getting to that. What you buy may not be what you think you buy. It's really important and it's growing, but these things are moving and changing rapidly. So do your homework. Thank your fundraiser because you have money to spend because of them. We've never had more, to Casey's point, but it allows us to be smarter, hopefully. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for being a very great audience. I wish I had time for questions, but I'm already getting in trouble. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everybody. Is everybody having a good time here today? Does everybody like this place? Do you want to come back next year? Here? All right. So this is where we have a lot of fun and make fun of people. No, that's just kidding. These people have some really great ideas. This Shark Tank, I think everybody knows it. Jackie and all the rest of these folks have lots of money, so they're going to buy these things. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so let's go real fast here. We've got the first person who's come up with this new idea. His name is Brian Leahy. He's a vice president of client solutions of Genius Monkey. Brian, you have 2.5 minutes. After that, we yank your butt off, dude, so go.
Okay. And by the way, I actually met a Shark Tank contestant just 2 weeks ago in person, which was kind of fun to hear about the whole process. And it's not as fun as you would think it would be. So, all right, we starting?
Yeah.
No, you're all right, here we go.
Man, you
2 minutes, let's go.
All right, let's do it. So Genius Monkey is a programmatic ad tech platform. We're based in the Phoenix Metro. We've been spreading good vibes since 2009. The key differentiators for our platform, one is just delivering lower media costs, amazing technology, and exceptional team of people to run your campaigns. I would say really the proof is in the pudding. So we have a 78% win rate over the last 4 election cycles. And actually when you include local initiatives, we have an 84% win rate over the last 8 years. So really for us, it's all about results. In terms of what we do with programmatic political advertising, it's really about reaching the right people with your messages. there's a lot of waste when it comes to media spend. So one of our goals is to make sure that we're reaching the right people as cost effectively as possible with your outreach efforts. I think the key thing to keep in mind here when you're talking about how we go about delivering your media is that, first of all, people are spending 7 to 8 hours in front of a digital device each day. So we know that digital is paramount in political campaigns. And there's a huge amount of swing voters, 35 to 49% of people. When you look at the last Gallup poll, 49% of people identified themselves as independent. So we have a huge opportunity in front of ourselves to sway those voters. One of the things that we see, and just to give you an idea of what these ads often look like, display, video, native, social, OTT, CTV, audio advertisements. A lot of times people are trying to do too much, put too much messaging. We'd rather have people focus on more powerful messaging and keeping it simple. But what can we do to help you with these programmatic campaigns? One, boost your name recognition, reach the right audience, actually craft messaging and tailor it to different groups, so we're not sending the same message to everyone. We can really target specific groups and make sure that, again, that we're reducing your ad dollars and eliminating the guesswork of the when and where. We want to serve the right ads to the right people, and we all have different journeys when we're on the internet, so it's about reaching the right people wherever they go. We achieve these lower costs, so again, that's one of the biggest things. When people are cost conscious and they have limited budgets, we've created a meta DSP technology that allows you to get more bang for your buck by basically price shopping across dozens of different aggregators, inventory exchanges.
That's it, man. You're done.
Done.
Okay, all right, Sharks, let's go. What do you want?
I just want to say, first off, the anxiety I got watching that timer made me nervous. So how are you incorporating artificial intelligence into your platform, or are you at all?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have AI components to it through our algorithm that we refer to as OmniMonkey, but I think the biggest differentiator with Genius Monkey is that we simply don't rely just on AI. We understand that there's a huge human element, so the last thing that we want to do, for example, like with a Tesla, you let the AI drive it, it's not always going to work out the best way possible, so we like to pair our AI with human interaction, and that's one of the biggest things. We provide a fully managed solution, a team of people that care. We like to consider ourselves politically agnostic and make sure that we're pairing campaigns with people that actually have similar political leanings to make sure that they're doing their best to help you win.
So when you say politically agnostic, does that mean you have Republican teams and Democratic teams? Because what I noticed when you said you're crafting the message, how do you keep those teams firewalled off? Are you large enough there?
Yeah, we never want to make any of our employees feel uncomfortable with what they're doing in their work, so we like to make sure that we're putting a team, let's say a right-leaning campaign, a Republican campaign, with a team with similar beliefs.
Cool. Sandra?
Yeah,
Go.
one question. You mentioned that you are a managed service. Can you give some examples of like how you support your customers? Because I think oftentimes that's the hardest part to scale.
So on that note, we see that we typically are able to derive similar pricing as a self-service being a fully managed solution because of the way that we go about purchasing media. But the thing that we do, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. And I'm the goldfish of the Shark Tank, so it's okay.
Okay.
But I was going to say, my question was, like, what can you give some examples of how you support clients? You said that you are a managed service because, I feel like in the political world, that could be a political world of tech tools. That's the hardest part to scale, is making sure that you're there for your customers when they need you.
We're there for the full journey. We're able to help as much as possible. We'll help with more of the technical setup, get access to Google Tag Manager, place the tracking codes, things like that. We can help build out the creative. We run the campaigns, we optimize the campaigns, we report the campaigns. So we're meant to be really the easy button for programmatic because we help from front to end.
That's awesome. Okay, we're done. You got to go. I'm sorry, Brian. Thanks, Brian. It's hard as hell to be up here and talk real fast. Okay, so our next presenter is from Prompt.io, Tamia Mirzoeva. Did I say that right? Okay. That's okay. No one can say, Chenzi. So, yeah. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
2:30. And rock.
Okay.
Go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tamila from Prompt.io. We are a winning and influence engine. We're a winning and influence engine for political campaigns, nonprofits, and advocacy groups. Don't worry. I know what you're thinking, which is, another boring texting platform. Are we in the 2000s? Were we still talking about texting? But hold on a minute. Prompt.io is a peer-to-peer texting platform that's fully registered. Imagine never having to worry about 10DLC registration. We'll take care of your 10DLC registration so you can drink a prickly pear margarita by the pool and enjoy your life. Not to mention, we're also great for agencies. You can manage multiple campaigns in one area. We have robust analytic tools, and you can upload and scrub lists seamlessly. And then speaking of analytics, we have segmentation tools, A/B testing, and soon patch-through calling. But don't tell anyone. We're not a typical technology company. We are veterans from the political space. We are political nerds. We love trivia and poker, and we throw damn good parties. So thank you, APC, for having us. We really appreciate it. And if you see anyone from Prompt, say hello. Thank you.
Wow. A minute and a half, man. That's awesome. Okay, let's go. Sharks, go.
First off, how do I get invited to the parties? How do I get invited to the parties?
Talk to us.
You got it. All right, I'm going to see you after this.
Well, I used to work with Tamila at Hustle. Insider.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not a shark. You're a dolphin.
Yeah,
Or
goldfish for the
goldfish.
win. Goldfish for the win. No, so I have two questions, I guess. And you kind of mentioned it because there are a ton of texting platforms out there. So what makes you stand out from the other platforms? And then also with 10DLC, and I know you mentioned that you all take care of the registration piece. So how fast can a campaign or an organization get onboarded and trained on the tool? Because I think that's really important when a campaign needs to be up and running same day most of the time.
Yeah, sure. So one of the benefits of our peer-to-peer texting tool is we were originally built for the commercial space, and so we have an incredibly robust API, and we do some incredible advanced analytical tools and build all kinds of different integrations with other systems, CRMs, et cetera. So it's kind of looks very simple on the top, very complex under the hood. So I think that's what's, especially working with agencies and reseller partners, has been a huge benefit for us. As far as 10DLC and compliance, it's been a bit of waiting games for some people. Our team is pretty much on the phone every single day with 10DLC teams, and usually we can solve things within a week or a day. It just depends on their schedule a lot of times, but we're probably we've been doing 10DLC and the registration for our customers from the beginning, and so we're the ones who are the nerdiest about 10DLC, and we'll actually call the organization and be like, hey, why did this customer get blocked? What was the word? Okay, they won't do it again, we promise. Who do we need to talk to? So we've been taking this very seriously, and it's paid off for a lot of our clients because we do get processed faster a lot of times because we're a good actor.
Great. Both sides of the aisle?
Both sides of the aisle.
And when we approach the election season and you guys are just drowning, do you things slow down for you at all?
Sorry, I don't understand that. Can you?
As volume increases,
Yeah.
as you take on more campaigns.
No, again, like I said, we were built for the Googles and the Dells of the world, and that's actually something that's also really awesome. Is we're almost overcomplicated tool. We don't know even all the systems, so speed is not going to be an issue for the presidential.
Do you incorporate AI or anything into your platform?
That is in my next pitch, or at the party. You will hear more about AI.
Definitely need tickets to that party.
Prompt GPT coming soon. No, just kidding. That's actually a lie.
Well, as a shark, I think we'd be interested in investing in something like that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
I cannot say
All
or
right,
unsay.
thank you so much. All right, let's go. So our next presenter only works for Democrats. So any Republicans need to go to the restroom, go ahead and do it, because this is really not going to do it. I'm just kidding. But you can vote for him. His name is Robert Arnault. And Robert, why don't you tell us what you got?
Hey, everyone. How do I put my slides on?
Right in front of you.
Okay. Perfect. How do I click between them?
That little remote control.
Nice. Thanks, guys. Here's some. I
have a product called Run, designedtorun.com. It's a do-it-yourself website builder for Democratic campaigns. Obviously, consultants have a huge problem dealing with websites. They're just a huge distraction. Unless you have the capacity to have very high-end staff that can deal with that sort of thing, you're just in a morass with it. And the idea is to make it incredibly, incredibly easy for people to stand up campaigns, campaign websites. I don't know why those, anyway, sorry. So yeah, a few things. What makes it different than other builders? First of all, it's editable by anyone. So you don't need to have technical skills at all. And I mean like much easier to use than Squarespace, Wix. You can have anyone on your staff jump on the site and edit it. You don't need to wait days for your web developer or web designer to deal with it. We have components built specifically for campaigns. So endorsements components, donation pop-ups, testimonials, issues pages, events, etc. So you don't need to go into Squarespace and build out complicated pages, build out complicated components that you don't know how to do. We have integrations with NGP, Action Network, Google Sheets, and MailChimp. So your volunteer forms will send data directly into those services. Everything is fully mobile optimized and unbreakable. So no matter what you do, no matter what you change, it is not going to break on mobile, and that's not something you need to worry about. We have AI upsampling of, I already went through my slides. I was going to rotate. We have AI upsampling of images. So if you have janky camera phone photos from your campaigns, just click a button. Those will become sharp. And design. You know, it's the hardest thing to describe, but that's really what differentiates us, is just very high-end, super clean designs, and also designs that are tailor-made for campaigns and not just small business, random small businesses. Finally, the most important thing for a lot of campaigns is speed. You can put up a site on our platform in about 2 to 4 hours consistently. By the campaign, we can set it up. Okay, that's it. Done.
Wow, that's great. Thank you very much, Robert. Okay, Sharsh, let's go.
I have 2 questions.
Go for it.
Then you can talk.
I'm done.
So one is, what kind of support is there with us? I get that it's all do yourself and unbreakable, but we don't sleep during political season, so maybe we can break it. Like, what's the support there?
Yeah, our staff pretty much like directly provides the support. So it's like me and our engineers and our designers are the ones directly providing that support, pretty much like on call for that.
And why only Democrats?
Is that a question people really want to hear the answer to in this room?
I think so. I mean, I'm the only one who matters. I'm a shark, so.
I want to continue to live in a democracy, so that's my reasoning.
That's okay, man. That's a good answer.
That's fair. So do you view yourself more as a technology, a design firm? And when you think about how you're providing this, it seems pretty templated, right? So is this a software solution to a problem, or do you guys take a deeper cut into specific elements for clients to really bring out a brand? Or is this just stand it up, get them out?
I think it's customizable within reason. So like we put guardrails on it to make it really easy and fast and to make sure everything looks good. And then we provide variation where possible. You can change the fonts and the colors and move things around, but like we didn't want to create too many options such that it would become difficult to manage.
Can I ask a follow-up? Okay.
Go ahead.
After someone gets this site up, which seems very simple to do, what is the next step? Is there another layer above this where someone can then begin customizing this site much more to their needs, like another level?
We are going to eventually build in the ability for people to code custom components. Right now, we don't have that.
Okay. Okay, so my question is, and it's kind of a piggyback on Joe's question, how are people, since you don't have to know how to code or have any skills, how do you train them? Like how easy is the setup? Seems like it's templatized, so like, can you just kind of walk through the onboarding process of a customer?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something, which is we had a whole help section designed out for the site, but we launched our MVP without it, and we just never needed it. It's so easy to use because the way the thing works is anytime you click a component, it just shows its options in the sidebar and nothing is buried. And so because nothing's buried, most people have been able to use it without asking us any questions.
Cool.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Robert. All right. Last but not least, from Vodium, I got it? Camille Padilla, and she's going to share us a little secret of what?
A Vodium.
Okay, from Vodium. All right. I don't know what a Vodium is, but...
Let's go. So once my slide starts playing, it's pretty ironic that I'm actually on this stage, and it all has to do with Vodium. So my name is Camille Padilla. I am one of the co-founders of Vodium, the first ever virtual teleprompter. So when the pandemic hit, just like you, I was selling, pitching, managing some pretty big projects, all on Zoom. Ironically, I was a political advertiser at that time, so I was conducting a multi-million-dollar advertising campaign all on Zoom, okay? Direct to camera, a negative ad against a very prominent senator. I looked all over the internet. What I needed was a teleprompter, right? A tool that positions itself right underneath the computer's camera to teach any user how to speak to their audience. I need it to sit and remain on top of any video conferencing platform, web browser, application, you name it, and is transparent. So while you are saying what you need to say, you see who and what's behind the screen. Like I said, nothing existed, so I called my best friend and we invented Vodium. Vodium is a tech-empowered solution that enables any user to speak directly, confidently, and efficiently to their audience. And everyone has their hacks, okay? Post-it notes, Word document, 2 monitors, am I right? But Vodium is not a hack, okay? We literally help you or your candidates say whatever they need to say, exactly what they need to say. When they're having that big call with their donor, we need $500,000. Yeah, just say it, just try and say it. Virtual town hall, you need to nail your messaging points, or digital advertising. A lot of pre-recorded videos these days that you need to send ahead of time. And honestly, I think we help people speak better on video than they would in person. So scan this QR code. You can try Vodium out for 1 month. Come up to my co-founder and I to talk about how we support candidates and campaigns. But most importantly, vote for Vodium. Sorry.
Awesome. Wow. That's very cool. All right, Sharks, go.
What is your pricing structure? Like how accessible it is? Like how accessible is it for, down ballot campaigns or organizations that may not have a big budget?
It's so affordable. So my best friend and I don't come from a technical background, but we are now very technical, right? We ran campaigns. I started off as an executive assistant. What we do is we get shit done. So very easy to download from the internet. You have a monthly subscription of $15 a month. You say, that's more expensive than my Netflix. Okay, you will use Vodium every single day on any type of meeting, virtual call, an agenda setting, a sales call, or you can pay upfront for $150. But let's say we're also trying to crack the B2B route. So on a separate agenda, we work with companies like Ernst & Young, FedEx, and Deloitte, and we support their staff of 200 sales teams members, right? So we deal with special pricing there, but it's really easy just to download off the internet. So $150, I really hope, is not too much on your P&L.
Questions?
Oh, I have tons of them. This is amazing. I like this. 2 things. Number 1, what feeds the prompter? Does it have to be pre-written, or could I manually add to it while someone's reading?
Ooh, that's a really great question. So another question too, if you aren't familiar with the tech world, not a lot of Latina founders get funded. We've raised almost $2 million. So we have to be very specific with our product roadmap. But right now you type in or copy directly from a Word document, a Microsoft document, your rich text formatting will remain. You quit out of your app and you open up it again, all your text remains. But something that we're still dealing with right now is security. So when you're dealing with an official office or a campaign, we don't store any of your data. We're a desktop application. The only time we make a connection to our server and collect your data is to validate that you're an active subscriber.
So therefore you can't share it, right?
We can't share. So if you need to share any of your information, you can't, because that was your question. And it's so exciting because we are looking. Okay, sorry, I was an assistant. So we've talked to a lot of members of Congress because it comes from my network. And one thing that they're asking for is, can someone else control my Vodium when I am using it? Or you can. I take notes with Vodium. So if I'm on a pitch and someone just said, hey, this would be super important, I'm typing while I'm nodding at them. And then I'm like, hey, it would be really cool, whatever you just said, but I just nuanced it and then read it verbatim back to you, and you had no idea that I was using Vodium. But in the future,
Yeah. We could ask you questions all night long. This is awesome. All right, let's bring them all back up on stage, please. This is the fun part. You guys get to pick. All right, let's go first off, Genius Monkey. Who thinks Genius Monkey should be the winner? Oh, bummer. All right, Prompt.io. Who thinks Prompt.io should be the winner? Okay, now we got Run. Who thinks Run should be the winner, the website? All right, Vodium. Who thinks Vodium should be the winner? I'm sorry, guys. Congratulations. You guys were all great. Thank you so much. I know it was really hard to do. Thank you. It was terrific. All right, listen, one more thing before we leave. We've had to change the Campaign Excellence Awards, as well as the Hall of Fame stuff has been moved to here. It'll be here at 7 o'clock. We'll have dinner, live music, and we'll go from there. But anyways, thank you. You guys have been great, and enjoy your afternoon.